Hey, it's Major Huang. Tip number 1. Have you ever seen this little button in Ableton's drum rack? This is the Show Hide Similar Sample Swap Buttons button. Because when you click this button, it gives you a bunch more buttons for swapping your samples with similar ones. So if I got this loop, I can swap the whole kit with these ones up here. And it's gonna remember all these selections, so I can actually audition a bunch of things and I can scroll backwards if I want through the ones I've already heard. Now on each individual sample, you also get a swap button, and you can also lock any samples that you like, but swap all the rest. Tip number 2 is if you need to replace every instance of a sample. Got this here. Now let's say I had an actual full track here. I'm using this sample all over the place. I've got more complicated rhythms programmed in. If I go to the expanded waveform view, I can right click and choose Manage Sample File. And now we can drag any other sample we want there, and they all switch out across your whole project. Tip number 3 is splitting a MIDI note into an arbitrary number of repeats. So if I select any MIDI note and I press Command E and keep holding Command, if I press the up arrow key, I can now specify a number of notes that I want that note divided into, and then down, of course, will reduce it back. The place where I'd use this the most is programming drill hats. As you can see, just a much easier way to audition these kind of hi-hat rolls when the alternative is like changing the size of your grid and then like duplicating a bunch of them for every different amount that you might want to try. Tip number 4 is another thing for the drum rack. Shout out to user-friendly sounds for this one. I can't believe this is even possible, but we're gonna use Live's envelope MIDI device. We can drag this into a drum rack sample slot. And so anytime that sample slot is triggered, it fires the envelope. And there could be a million uses for this, but to give you a quick example, let's say I've got a little bit of reverb and delay on this send track. And I found I like automating a little bit of space onto the snare every time it comes around. I didn't want it on the whole kit. Just wanted it like that. If that's the case, I now have to copy this automation across my entire song. But also, if I change anything about my drum pattern as I'm making my song, I have to be keeping track of whether this automation is there when I want it and not there when I don't want it. So let's get rid of that. Go back to our envelope MIDI here. I'm gonna set this to unipolar, and we're gonna map it to that send. And now in my drum MIDI, I've got this envelope MIDI slot here. Let's put it on our snare beats. And you can see it's doing that automation for me wherever I've placed that note. And I can always tweak that envelope if I want to adjust the shape of the automation. Tip number 5, this has been in Ableton for many, many versions, but I still know a lot of people don't know about it. And that is, if you look at an Ableton project within Ableton's browser, you can drag tracks into your current set. So here are a bunch of Ableton project folders. If I open one up, I can actually expand the Ableton file, and then it shows me all of the tracks in that file, and I can just be like, yeah, let's take the sub from that and bring it into my current project. And it is going to take the track as it is in the set you pull it from. So like I didn't have the sub starting until bar 5, I guess there. And of course, if you've got your stuff warped or if it's MIDI, it's going to respect your current set's tempo. So it looks like this was originally 63 BPM, but because it's a warped clip, it is fitting with my currently 94 BPM. Next tip is about automation. This is also something that's been around for a long time, but again, a lot of people don't seem to know about it. Let's draw some automation. Beautiful. Now, if you highlight any chunk of automation and hover over it, there are these teeny tiny little squares in the corners and centered along the edges. And each of these will reshape your automation in a different way. So like if I drag from this corner, it does that. It like scales it? Yeah, and I can scale it upwards. Obviously, I can do the other side. Also, it does allow me to go past the bottom. The top and bottom ones just do that scaling across the entire automation. And then the right and left ones squeeze or stretch the automation to wherever you drag it. Tip number 7, you can save default audio and MIDI tracks. So let's say you find yourself using a utility and an EQ a lot on your tracks. Right click on your track, choose save as default audio track. And same thing if you're on a MIDI track. Tip number 8, you can also save defaults for plugins. So in my EQ8 setup, I've got my bands set up to where I want them usually for a starting point, but they're all disabled other than the low cut because I often use a low cut, and I can just right click the title bar and go save as default preset if I like that. And then this is what's gonna load up every time I load an EQ8. And this actually also works with third-party plugins. So right-clicking on the title bar here, it's called save as default configuration. And of course, this also applies to groups. You can save a default preset for an audio effect rack, although it probably makes more sense to use this save button here where you can save different templates for different situations with their own names. Tip 9 is option left arrow. If you have a sample selected in your timeline and press option left arrow, it goes boop over to line up with the previous sample, which is just a handy thing when you're editing and you chopped out a bunch of stuff and then you end up with some dead space. I don't know why though, if you press option right, it doesn't do the same thing. It like moves it to the start points of some other samples, but it also sometimes just moves it to like other places on the timeline. And also if I go to the end of the last sample, I can't go any further. Don't know the use for option right, but option left, you can close those gaps. Next tip, if you want to know how long something is and you don't want to like go down to this timeline and do the math, you can just highlight the thing that you're thinking about. It shows you, I don't know why I'm pointing to my screen. It shows you in the bottom left. All right, now let's talk about soloing. Something strangely personal to a lot of people is whether they prefer exclusive soloing or not. So if I go to Ableton Preferences, under the Record, Warp, and Launch tab, you can turn on or off exclusive solo. If it's on, it means that only one track can be soloed at a time. Whatever I click on, that is soloed, everything else is muted. If it is off, that means that as I solo tracks, previously soloed tracks remain. This is my preferred method of working. Here's the tip though. If you press Command while you click the solo button, it inverts the behavior that you have set in preferences. So I typically have exclusive solo off, meaning if I have a bunch of tracks soloed and I want to unsolo them, I have to click them individually. Not the case if I just Command click, because that forces the behavior to be exclusive solo. But if you're unsoloing a track, then it has to unsolo them all. And then the inverse is also true. If I like having exclusive solo on, I can still Command click to get non-exclusive behavior. So whichever way you have it set, you can just Command click to have the opposite. And I'm gonna turn exclusive solo back off because that is the correct way. The next tip is if you're a Splice user, use this toggle to have Splice show up here under Places. It is so much better to have Splice in your Ableton browser, find the samples you want and drag them into your project without having to switch over to the Splice app window. It's just way smoother. Drag it in. All right, our final tip. You probably know that Command Z is undo, Shift Command Z is redo. Do you know about Option Command Z? This gives you the undo list. So I can go through, I don't know how many, oh, it goes all the way back to opening. I've never looked back this far. Maybe at some point it would run out. Apparently today I haven't hit that point, but maybe it's infinite. Who knows? So I can just click to go to any undo state. And as long as I don't do anything else, I can also click to go back. Sometimes it takes a moment. So here we are, back at the point where I added in the donkey sample that is very important to me. If you want even more hidden tips like this, I dropped another video like this a few years ago. I'll link to it. Hope this helped.